Ni hao and welcome into the CFB Showdown podcast. We had an incredible Saturday filled with commercials and just a little bit of college football. Seriously, these commercials are getting out of hand with this new college football rule change, but on a bright side, these WNBA commercials have been lights out, and I'm ready to become a season ticket holder for the Sparks. Great stuff coming there. We'll start the show off in Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where the Texas Longhorns defeated the Alabama Crimson Tide. Yes, folks, you heard that right. Texas is back, and they played one hell of a football game. Quinn Ewers, he is him. He played out of his mind, throwing for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. On the other side of the ball, Jalen Milroe, quarterback for Alabama, did not play that great. Definitely a great athlete, able to run the ball pretty well, 44 yards, tacked on 250 yards rushing, but had 2 costly interceptions. This was not what we expect from a Nick Saban, University of Alabama football team. On the bright side for them, their defense, especially in the first half, was flying all over the field, putting in a lot of violent hits so you could really hear on TV, and it was a great game to watch. But I think Texas just played the best game they played since the 2006 Rose Bowl versus USC. A lot of excitement in Longhorn Nation right now, and it is deserved. I'm excited to see what they can do the rest of the season. Looking at their schedule, their toughest matchup is, of course, going to be Oklahoma and the Red River Shootout. So if they can take care of business the rest of the schedule, they should be the number 2 or number 1 team going into the playoffs. So definitely exciting stuff for the Texas Longhorns. Next up, North Carolina 40, Appalachian State 34. Now a quick PSA for athletic directors around the country. Do not, under any circumstances, schedule Appalachian State as an out-of-conference game. They are not a tune-up. They are not a cupcake. They are a bona fide football team. You can talk to Michigan or Texas A&M, and they'll explain it to you thoroughly. There is something in the water, folks, in Boone, North Carolina, and they breed upsets. Do not schedule them, and North Carolina narrowly comes out with a win. Hopefully they learn their lesson. Now let's move to the West Coast and check in on the Pac-12. Oh, call an ambulance. But not for me, because the Pac-12 is not done yet. They have 8 teams ranked in the AP poll, top 25, and the Pac-12 is looking as good as they've looked almost in my lifetime. First game we're going to take a look at is Colorado versus Nebraska. The Buffaloes started the game off slow on offense in the first half against the Nebraska Cornhuskers, at least according to Coach Prime's new standard. But the team took over in the second half with Heisman hopeful Shedeur Sanders throwing for 390 yards and 2 touchdowns, putting the Nebraska Cornhuskers out of their misery and storming the field. It was a great game to watch. I enjoyed it. I think it was partially overhyped. They were looking for a game, and Nebraska is frankly just not that good. Next up, we'll go to beautiful Waco, deep in the heart of Texas, where the Baylor Bears took on and lost to the Utah Utes 20-13. Baylor was in control for much of the game, but the Utah Utes went on a 14-point run in the fourth quarter to win the game. Ended up winning it on a controversial no call on a pass interference in the end zone that would have brought Baylor to a tie, but they came out with a win. Program is looking up after their win over Florida last week. Baylor, on the other hand, could not be more opposite. After losing to Texas State last week, they're now 0-2 on the season, and things are not looking good for Baylor. The rest of the Pac-12 took care of business. Oregon defeated Texas Tech, a team coming off a loss from Wyoming, possibly their worst in program history. Came down to the wire, but Oregon ended up on top. We also had Washington State pulling off the upset against Wisconsin. That was a great game, 31-22. Great win for Washington State. Additionally, we had Auburn going to Cal at California Memorial Stadium, winning the game 14-10. Despite the scoreboard, this was a great game for Cal. They really should have won this game had they had better play from their kicker, who went 1 for 4. They probably would have won this game. Definitely disappointing for Cal, but considering where their program is at, I thought it was a great game for them. USC took on Stanford, winning 56-10. Caleb Williams is going to get his, and he took care of business. The only real blemish on this record for the Pac-12 this week was Arizona State losing to Oklahoma State. But definitely interesting. Pac-12 despite being on its deathbed, has been playing some great football. 8 teams ranked in the top 25. I believe only 3 losses on the season so far. The Pac-12 right now might be the best conference in football, and it's an absolute shame that the media is ruining the Pac-12 and college football regionality in general. Obviously, conferences have ups and downs, mountains and valleys, and the Pac-12 has been bad for the last 15 years, but I think they really are on the up, so it's a shame to see the conference go down. We'll wrap things up with some other scores around the nation. Notre Dame defeating NC State 45-24. Sam Hartman threw for 290 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Notre Dame looked every bit of the part of a top 10, potentially top 5 team in the country. Ole Miss went on the road to Tulane, winning 37-20. I think really just out-talented Tulane with their SEC caliber players and coming out with a great win. Jackson Dart throwing for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. Finally, the number 23 Texas A&M Aggies and Jimbo Fisher went to Miami and were soundly handed a loss 48-33. Texas A&M is a disappointing team this year and in the last few years. Obviously, they've had some of the best recruiting classes in college football history, and in my opinion, are a top 5 talent team, but they've consistently underperformed. And I start to question Jimbo's game day coaching abilities, despite winning a championship at Florida State. Texas A&M has a lot of ground to make up there, and hopefully they can figure it out before they have to do an incredible buyout with Jimbo Fisher. Next up, we have an exciting new segment on the CFB Showdown podcast. Our production team has been working day and night to set this up. We'll now be accepting callers from around the country and around the world. All right, first up, we have an anonymous caller from San Diego, California. Welcome to the program, Bears Nation 69.
Hey guys, first time caller, long time listener here. How's it going?
We're doing great. What do you want to talk about, Bears Nation?
Well, I'd like to talk a little Golden Bears football.
Let's talk about Dub Bears. What do you got for us?
What I got for you is a prime example of why the Pac-12 fell apart. This was an abomination of a football game played by the California Golden Bears. Most notably, their kicker, Luckhurst, that ginger prick, pardon my language, he should never be allowed to step foot on a football field again. And their coach, fire him immediately. How do you have 3 drives in the first half alone that start in Auburn territory within 30, 35 yards of the goal line, and you don't put up any points? Explain that to me. Explain how that's a winning football team.
You know, I know it was very disappointing for Bears Nation, a passionate college football program. I understand you were at the game. Can you tell me a little bit about what the atmosphere was like there in Berkeley?
Well, I'm not sure if you know this, but Memorial Stadium, that place gets packed. That place can rattle some domes, let me tell you. And this year, it's actually 100-year anniversary of Memorial Stadium up there at California, Berkeley. And let me tell you, Auburn, SEC team, you think they would be able to handle the pressure of a big environment playing teams like Alabama, LSU, all that jazz. And no, Memorial Stadium had them rattled. And so if I can say one thing about this game, it's that the fans did their job. The players and coaches, they did not.
It was certainly disappointing, and to me, Auburn looked soft. Cal was undoubtedly the tougher team. I think had they had a kicker, they definitely win that game. Now, looking forward to next week, you guys have the infamous Idaho Vandals coming to town, coming to Berkeley. How do you feel about that game and the rest of the season?
Well, I'm not looking at it from a skill and talent perspective. I'm not too concerned about the Idaho Vandals. What I am concerned about is a deflated team leaving that California Bears locker room and going out to the field and putting up another dud. That's what I'm concerned about.
Definitely a reasonable concern. Some sources for optimism. Obviously, right now the Pac-12 is balling. I believe they're 18-1 or 18-2, excuse me, with their only losses being Cal last night, and of course USC beating Stanford. Definitely a stronger conference than it used to be. How do you feel about some of their bigger games on the schedule? USC and Oregon coming to town late October and November.
Well, What I'd like to point out to you is, you say it's a strong conference. They're 18-2 as a conference, but those two losses are from two of the four teams that are actually staying. So this conference is gone. It's done. I'm calling it here. I look forward to those matchups against prestigious teams because I know in the next 4 to 5 years, we're going to be struggling to find meaningful games to play. I mean, who are you going to match us up against? UC Davis? I just don't see it. I don't see where this program goes. Last night was our chance to really prove ourselves. Beat an SEC team. Your foot's in the door to maybe join another conference. I don't think anybody wants this caliber of team joining up. It's over. It's toast. I'd say wrap up the program. I wouldn't even walk out for the rest of these games.
Well, folks, you heard it here. Nothing but pessimism from Berkeley Nation and the mighty Cal Bears. Maybe they should stick to gender studies and riots. I don't know. Thank you so much for calling in, Bears Nation 69.
Of course, man. Big fan of the pod. Keep up the good work.
God bless. All right, our next caller comes to us from Shiner, Texas. Here's Buck. You're on the program.
Howdy. So I just want to talk about some Aggie football, some Texas A&M football. And I know you're probably a hater, Notre Dame fan from what I've heard. But I'm telling you, the program is going in the right direction, okay? We got 2022 best recruiting class in the nation, okay? So there's something, maybe we had some coaching errors, but our talent is there, okay? So we're heading in the right direction. Jimbo can lead us to victory. I mean, Winbo with Jinbo. That's what the Aggies say. I think we're starting at a rough position, 1-1, but I'm not even going to count that last game, okay? It's beginning season jitters. We're a second half season kind of team. As we've seen the last couple of years, 8-4 is consistent. Okay, we can do better than that with the talent we have now. Now there's some work that can be done, but I wanted to hear your opinions on what you think of this team. But I have high hopes for the end of the season.
Well, Buck, we talked about it a little bit earlier on the podcast, but we're pretty negative on Texas A&M right now. We're thinking it's a strong sell on the Aggies. We question if Jimbo can be a strong game day coach. He's definitely shown, like you said, he can recruit, but can he put together a team and get the most potential out of his players? Obviously, he won a championship at Florida State, but since then he's pretty much been stuck in mediocrity, and we're a little disappointed. We thought going to Miami, and it was a pretty pathetic crowd there. It was barely even a home game for Miami. Getting beaten soundly 48-33 was pretty disappointing for Aggie Nation. How did you feel watching the game?
I'll be honest. I was a little disappointed, okay? But I would say A&M is a home team, okay? We were going to win every home game this season. So to go out, early in the year, go at a tough opponent on the road, it's a tough loss. But I think we showed a lot of potential, especially in the QB department. I mean, Connor Wegman, hometown Texas guy, Bridgeland, Texas. I mean, that's not too far. He's a good guy, great QBR. I mean, he's putting in the work. We're definitely going to see end of the year fantastic numbers from him. The secondary, left a lot to be desired. But I think Jimbo has put us in a position to win, and it was just a tough early season loss. I can't. The SEC, is having a tough year, so maybe that's part of it. But I think as an Aggie, okay, the home field, all our home games, we're gonna crush. So the rest of the year, we're in a good point.
Well, looking at their schedule for this year, you have October 7th, you have Alabama coming to town. The next week, you go to Tennessee. 2 weeks later, you go to Ole Miss, and you finish the season off in Death Valley versus big game Brian Kelly at LSU. What's your prediction for the rest of the year in terms of a record?
In terms of a record, I mean, I'm going our next couple games, win against Arkansas, and then, Alabama, that's going to be a tough one, but they just got beat by Texas. So, I hate the Horns, but if Texas can beat them, we're a better team than Texas, okay, in Texas. So that's a win. Tennessee is kind of washed. I honestly don't think they're that good. It's just the AP polls overrate them, is what it is. Ole Miss, that's an easy win. I mean, who cares about Ole Miss? It's a wash team anyway. And then, Death Valley, the last time we won, my parents were in school, so I don't have any words about Death Valley. Yeah, but
All right, well,
I'm saying a good 9-3 minimum.
All right, well, that's a good, strong prediction for the year. Last question for you, Buck. Texas, like we talked about, had a great win yesterday, probably their biggest win in maybe 20 years. What's your outtake on Texas? Horns up or horns down?
Horns down. I can't wait. We play them in 2025. We're going to whip them. You know, it is what it is. They think the program's coming back, but they've never really been good, okay? It's been like 20 years. You said it. So I think it's our time coming that, you know, Texas got a lucky win. Alabama having a rough year, I guess. I can't say, but hometown advantage in Texas will win you a lot of games. I'll tell you what, the fans in Texas, at any school, Baylor, Texas Tech, doesn't matter. Any team that plays in Texas is going to have a rough time, okay? It's just different football culture around here. So, you know what? When we play them at the Cotton Bowl, if that's where it is in 25, or we play them at home, we're going to win.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Nothing but optimism from Shiner in Texas. Thanks for calling in, Buck. Appreciate the call.
It's great to be on this podcast. You guys are doing great things. Giga Mags.
That'll do it from all of us in our studio in sunny San Antonio, Texas. Here's Charles Barkley to sign us off. Kenny, that was a terrible episode. Terrible. Couldn't even get them big old women in San Antonio to listen if you gave them all the churros in the world.
You're now listening to a Bobby Johnson beat.
Hey, word on the street, I'm a suspect. Hanging with the killers in the projects. Tato on the barrel, keep quiet.